Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and this is a new type of video I'm going to try to do. Should be interesting, let's hope. And this is a sermon summary. So I am fortunate to be a evangelical Christian, a Christian man who loves Jesus Christ, and so I go to church every week, right? And it's a special thing. It's really important to me. And one thing I've been doing for about 2 years is I live tweet my notes for a Sunday sermon. The reason I do this is I and my family are blessed to be in church on Sunday morning, but the rest of the world can't hear the sermon I'm hearing, right? So, and I'll tell you right now, these pastors, they're wonderful men. They serve God, they serve my family, they serve Jesus, and so they work hard all week to give a great sermon, right? And so one of the reasons I do is I take notes constantly. I'm a note taker. I love it. You might even say I have graphomania. But one of the reasons why I take notes, this is one of the best sayings I've ever heard about notes. And I take notes constantly. People see it all the time. So one of the things that people say, well, why are you writing that down? And one of the best things I ever heard sayings on note taking is they said, I'm not writing this down to remember it later. I'm writing this down to remember it now, right? And so note taking helps me pay attention to what I'm hearing. And also, I read many years ago. I read a book on note taking, and it explained if you're taking notes, you could tell how good the speaker is by how easy it is to take notes. Because if they're jumping all over, I use like mind maps. So I'll draw little lines, connect information, and when you're listening to a good speaker who has main points and knows what they're talking about, it's very easy to take notes, right? So it's another reason is it actually gives you an idea of the value of what you're listening to. So basically, I love the idea. When I saw Twitter, I'm like, hey, this pastor just worked hard. This sermon's being put up. Why keep this just people who can sit here in this sermon? This should go out to the world. The other thing is I would like to see the notes of my father's church. I would like to see the notes of my brothers in Christ for the churches they're at. I would love to get a summary of what they learned that Sunday, right? So I should be able to see everybody's sermon notes. Everybody should be able to see mine. And that's just for brothers and sisters in Christ. The lost, oh man, I got 150 people on my Facebook account, and I pruned that, right? And I got, oh my goodness, I got at least 1,000 people in my circles in Gmail. Why shouldn't every single lost person be able to see our sermon notes, right? So I've been live tweeting sermon notes for about 2 or 3 years. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sermon summary in a YouTube video. I'm going to take the sermon that I heard this Sunday, and I'm going to summarize it. And so, few warnings. One, this is my summary. So this pastor, he's a brilliant guy. He's got, probably has a doctorate in theology. I don't. So this is my understanding of what he said. So one, understand that. Basically, if you want the source, go to the church, and see if you can get the source. I'll explain what church I'm currently at. So this is my sermon summary. And so I'm going to break this out. This is the first one I've ever done, so appreciate your patience. Hopefully this will be useful. So basically, I go to Blue Root Vineyard Church currently, and the pastor there is Pastor Mark Tyndall, and he's an exciting pastor. He's a really interesting guy, and he takes an interesting take on he really kind of tries to come at things at a different angle, which I really appreciate. Because if you've been, I've been a Christian since I was 15. I'm 43. That's a lot of years. I could do the math. I think like 28 years or something in my head. Yeah, and so I've heard literally hundreds of sermons, right? So if somebody could try to take a different angle, that's appreciated. So and he's very careful about it. Like everything he's preaching comes directly from the Word and is grounded in the Word, the Holy Bible. So what he was going over was he did a New Year's Eve, like a New Year's Eve service, and so he said, generally you're going to hear. Don't make resolutions, right? Because they don't last. He gave a lot of statistics about how resolutions don't last, but he actually encouraged people, hey, go forward and make resolutions, right? And he said, and realize that if you fail in your first week, if you fail in your first month, if you fail in your first quarter, don't worry about it. God is going to give you 1,000,000 first starts, right? And he talked about last year was a year of restoration for himself, right? And I thought this was really fascinating. And so he said they restored their home, and what's that got to do with the Bible, right? What's that got to do with being about God? Well, he has a wife and family, right? So he's making his home a better place, a nicer place for his wife to live in and for his children to live in. And that's very biblical, to give to. Well, Christ showed how. So the model for being a good husband. This wasn't a sermon. This is just something I've learned from the Bible and from many other sermons. The model for being a good husband is sacrifice. So Jesus Christ, his bride was the church, and he sacrificed everything. He gave everything to us, right? And so, here, Mark, he's going to sacrifice time to make his home better. He's going to sacrifice money to make his home better for his wife and for his children. And then also he talked about, more prayer. He had resolved to be more prayer. Also resolved to be better about email and just responding to email. He said he had failed on that one, which I thought was funny. And, and he also said that many of these he had not completely done, and he was working hard on it. But, and so he said, don't be afraid of making resolutions, and realize that God is going to give you a million first starts. And, he didn't say this directly, but I kind of felt like the things he was telling you to make resolutions on were for the kingdom, and for things that were going to be good for God's kingdom and for the kingdom itself. And, and then basically, he also, so he just said, don't stop at one failure, continue on. He had some great quotes in there. He said, be bold in resolving, in resolving to accomplish something significant. And then also, be curious in reflecting. He said that as well. And I thought the one of the key points of the sermon was he said, we burn grace. Christians burn grace like jet fuel. I thought this is a great topic. I thought it was really exciting, and it was a good one. And so I really liked it. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much a good summary of what we learned there. So this was Mark Tyndall, Pastor Mark Tyndall's sermon from Blue Root Vineyard. I hope I did a good job of summarizing and capturing it. And the point is out there, if you're blessed to be in another church, here's an extra sermon for the week, right? And this is definitely a good thing to replace whatever we were going to be watching, if we whether it be another show or whether it be more time in a video game. I'm hoping this is going to be helpful to people. And then also, one of the great things about YouTube is it reaches out, right, to the world, right? And so at this point, anybody can enjoy Mark Tyndall's, just a fraction of Mark Tyndall's sermon, and some of the highlights. I think that's exciting. And so if you're a brother or sister in Christ, I would really love to hear the sermon summaries you have. And thank you.